Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today, thanks to the board members of the TFW 2005 boards, I got tipped off for a way to bring you guys this review for the new Transformers Studio Series 86 Hot Rod. I managed to do a bit of a hike today to pick Hot Rod up from a Target in my state. Sadly, someone had literally just beaten me to the only Scourge that was left in the store, but he is a fellow board member on that site, so I was happy he could get it and not some scalper. So no harm, no foul there, right? And I'm sure there'll be restocks and I'll come across a Scourge eventually. So, for the uninitiated, Studio Series 86 is a subline within the Studio Series subline of the Generations line of the Transformers franchise that focuses purely on characters from the 1986 animated movie, The Transformers the Movie. This new subline has led to the rather odd situation of looking at a Transformers Studio Series box and seeing a G1 character in it. But the 86 movie was a movie, so it is fair play for Studio Series. And the reason they're doing this is because this year is actually the 35th anniversary of Transformers the Movie. So between Studio Series and the adjacent War for Seibertron Kingdom line, we're getting a lot of the characters that either premiered or at least featured heavily in that movie. So naturally, you can't do Transformers movie without including Hot Rod, arguably the main character. Now you also notice, given the size of the box, that this Hot Rod is indeed a Voyager class figure, despite his rather small stature. And I promise we will discuss this. I brought it up in my Optimus Primal review, and I'll at least touch on it here. Probably not going to expend the exorbitant amount of time I spent on poor Optimus's review, griping about the price of things. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Hot Rod's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see his instructions, we'll see his backdrop, because even the 86 movies come with a backdrop, and then we'll see Hot Rod himself in both his vehicle and robot modes. You can expect that I'll be doing quite a few group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So as I already said, Hot Rod comes in your standard Studio Series Voyager class box. He gets the call out to the title of his movie right here, in this case, The Transformers the Movie. And he does get his artwork, which isn't quite normal Studio Series, but also isn't quite War for Seibertron, kind of somewhere in between. And you can see him kind of yelling and opening the Matrix in that very climactic scene at the end of the movie. And you'll see here his numeral designator is 86, little subscript 04. So all of the Studio Series 86 toys are going to be 86 with a smaller number next to it. So him being number 4 makes sense because he'll come right after the 3 deluxes in the subline, which oddly haven't started hitting shelves yet, even though the Voyagers have. So expect to see that number a lot in the next year or two. Here on the front window, we get a good look at Hot Rod himself, and you can also see his Matrix, which as far as I can tell is identical to the one that comes with Earthrise Optimus Prime. Of course, I'll confirm that. He gets 2 blast effect pieces, got his buzzsaw, his 2 guns, and I think he's got a welding torch somewhere. Might be hiding inside of him. Over here, you get a close-up of his character art, which looks really nice. The lighting really works for, the setting where he's supposed to be inside Unicron. It's all dark and creepy. Over here, we get the renders for the toy. And he takes 29 steps to transform from vehicle to robot and back. So that's pretty much right smack in the middle of where Optimus Primal and Cyclonus were in Kingdom. So he's a moderately complicated figure, so that's good. His backdrop piece is officially called the Depths of Unicron, which is very appropriate. And his little flavor text here is Hot Rod lights the darkest hour. I feel like they should have said our darkest hour, but okay, that's fine. We still get the call out. And then over here, you get a full-size shot of what appears to be the exact same artwork, but at least now you get to see his whole body. And, I gotta say, it looks really nice. You can also see here, they've done a little bit of something new, where instead of an Autobot symbol, Decepticon symbol, whatever, you get the numbers 86. So, they're really hammering home the fact that this is all about the 86 movie. And I know there's a lot of mixed reception to that. A lot of people feel that G1 has no place in the movie universe stuff. And I do sympathize with those people because, if they're fans of the Bayverse things, they're looking to see more characters from that. And they've been waiting a while probably to see some of their favorite characters, like Dino, for instance. So I understand the disappointment of getting a toy you weren't really wanting in a line where you're hoping for something else. So I do sympathize. But I also accept the fact that the 86 movie is a movie, and Hasbro was in a bit of a pickle because they wanted to celebrate both the movie's anniversary as well as Beast Wars' 25th anniversary. So they only got so many slots. They decided to basically split up the movie cast between Kingdom and Studio Series, and then fill out the rest of Kingdom with Beast Wars characters, while the rest of Studio Series was your more traditional Bayformer guys. All right, enough chatter. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. Okay, and here we get our instruction book for Hot Rod. You see his number up here again, 8604. Got his name, movie logo. Nice render right here on the front. And these instructions open up way long ways. It's like a scroll or something. So, start here with just a plain render of Hot Rod's robot mode, and then we get right into the transformation, which stretches all the way here. 2 rows. Finishes up on the 2 rows on this page. Additionally shows you where to place his fire blast effects, his 2 guns, and even a saw blade, which you can mount on top of the guns in his vehicle mode. Over here shows you additional storage. You can store these things on his back. You can also store them on the roof of his car, which honestly looks better than on the hood if you ask me, because I'm going to see where you're going, right? We get the I guess how-to for his fingers, as well as placing his guns in his hands, showing you how to attach his blast effects to his arm-mounted exhaust pipes, which are, basically functional blasters. And then this shows you how to flip his hands in so that you can either have his little welding torch thing sticking out, or you can attach a saw blade. And we get all the way over here. This shows you how to flip his helmet up and bring his visor down to mimic the visor that he gets in the 86 movie. And then lastly, this short little panel for how to attach it's not really a fire blast effect, but like light up effect to his matrix piece, and then have him hold it. So a lot going on there. I mean, you get like this whole middle section just devoted to features. Very gimmick heavy toy. And over here you get the cross cell for Scourge, who I sadly do not have, but one day. All right, now we get to see Hot Rod's vehicle mode, along with his slew of accessories. You can see I have the little fire blast or exhaust effects already attached to his tailpipes, and they look really nice. They're molded specifically to fit over these, so you can see they have 2 little 3mm ports here that are offset from each other to line up to the top 2 little hard points on his exhaust pipes, so that's very nice. And it's a pretty solid looking little car. I don't know if it's just me or if it's a problem with the mold itself. I can't get these like little headlight sections to sit like nice and flush with what are the top of the robot shoulders. Just no matter what I do, no matter how much I compress things, try to push pieces up, push pieces down, they will not sit flush. So I don't know. Anyone else that's got this toy, do you have this issue? Because it's bugging me. Kind of kills the look of the toy, right? When these won't smooth out and become nice and sleek. Very frustrating. Anyway, the car, as you can see, has painted hubcaps on the front wheels, but not on the back. They didn't bother to paint the back wheels because I guess they thought nobody would see them with the exhaust pipes in the way, which, I mean, for all the effort they put into this thing, it's kind of weird they would just skimp on that. It's like the one bit of paint he really needs that they just said, nah. He's got his little engine block, which is very reminiscent of the original. You can see it's got 2 little slots here, which you can probably guess what those are for. And he does roll very, very well, so no issues there, no clearance problems on the bottom. The back is admittedly a bit hokey looking because you have his kneecaps sticking out. So it doesn't have a proper back bumper on this thing. So still no perfect Hot Rod. I don't think we're ever going to get a perfect Hot Rod, but yeah. Over here you can see his little buzzsaw weapon. You can see his twin blasters, which are actually molded differently like the original toy and a lot of their releases since. Then you get your Matrix, which is definitely the same one that comes with Optimus Prime. There's no doubt about that. So you got like that hollow bit on the back. Then you have that cool blast effect that goes over the Matrix. So yeah, he's quite the package. So just like the original Hot Rod toy and most of the ones afterwards, you can attach his guns to his engine block. unlike the original, you can actually attach both at the same time, which is something that I think only the Titans Return toy was ever able to pull off. So you can place both of them on here by using these little kind of bits that stick off the sides and plug them in the slots, like so. So that's really cool. You can emulate that old look. Then you can take it a step further and place the buzzsaw on top of these because it has little slots on both sides, so it's universal. And you just plug them right on these. And it works. It holds everything, though, again, I think it's very impractical looking. I mean, I get Hot Rod drives himself, but this is supposed to look like a car that you could actually drive around. So why would you want to be blocking your whole windshield? Now, what I think looks better is going and doing it on the roof of the car. I mean, the best way is always concealed weapons, but if we can't do that, at least don't block your windshield. So let's do this, and you'll see it takes a fair amount of force to push these in, which concerns me, because these are fully painted, but for the handle. And I'm really having to press these things in here, so don't be super shocked if the paint on these little triangle bits in your gun starts wearing off. Yeah, see, that looks a lot better to me. Little roof-mounted blaster. So you can have this, which I think is honestly the superior setup, or you can be more traditionalist and put it on there. That's totally up to you. And now I bring to you the Hot Rods. This is a mostly inclusive list of the different G1 Hot Rod releases throughout the years. So starting all the way on the left, you get the original G1, or in this case, the vintage reissue from Walmart. This would go on to get a Target Master retool, and then it did have a Japanese exclusive Micromaster version, but I don't have that because I'm not made of money. And then all the way in 2006, we got the Classics Hot Rod toy, which was the first real revival of the character since G1. And it was considered people's go-to G1 Hot Rod for many, many years. And it was such a popular mold, it's been redecoed multiple times, including a much more G1 accurate redeco in the 2010 line, but I want to show you guys the original for now. Then we get the little Combiner Wars Legends toy, which is just a new head retool of the Blackjack toy from that line. I don't think anyone really considered that their go-to Hot Rod. And then over here, we have the 2016 Masterpiece. Now, there was a previous Masterpiece, Rodimus Prime, that could actually transition between Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime. I don't have that one, unfortunately, so this is just the purely Hot Rod version. Then with the Titans Return Hot Rod that came out that same year, and this one, I think for many people, ended up replacing the Classics toy as their go-to Hot Rod. Even though he definitely took some artistic liberties with the design, he was by far the most posable, the most well-proportioned. So he was really good. And then 2 toy lines later, you got the Power of the Primes Hot Rod that was a smaller robot that became Rodimus Prime. I know a lot of people use this guy. A lot of people stick with one of the older ones. Kind of a toss-up. I think he makes a much better Hot Rod than he does a Rodimus Prime. And then lastly, we get our new guy. So you can see, with the exception of the Blackjack retool, these are all really similar takes on a singular design. They all carry a lot of the same motifs, right? They got the flames on the hood. They get the exhaust pipes extending back. They get the big old yellow spoiler, the engine block on top. Most of them follow that almost to a T. Probably the biggest deviation is the Power of the Primes toy, because his vehicle mode also forms the front of Rodimus Prime's vehicle mode, which is much more squared off, so he doesn't have the tapered hood there. But still very close, regardless. And I point out how similar they are to kind of bring up the point of Hot Rod is not a character that has not wanted for new toys, especially in recent years. You know, there are a lot of characters that have received few to no updates since their original, and he's definitely not one of them. He gets a lot of releases, and this is only including the G1 based Hot Rods. You get into other continuities, it's way more. Now, part of this is obviously because he is a very popular character. He was a leader of the Autobots. He's kind of a mainstay of the franchise. So naturally, like, Optimus, Bumblebee, Megatron, there's going to be a lot of Hot Rods. But like I said, they're all so very similar in a lot of ways, especially the vehicle mode, that I think it's showing, especially when you start about here going forward, that Hasbro's really adopting this mentality of getting their customers to chase the perfect version of each character, right? A lot of people are obsessed with this idea of having the perfect version of each character. So, what do Hasbro and Takara do? They release a character that's like really, really good, not perfect, but really good. And then a year or two later, they release that same character. All new design usually, all new figure, very similar to the last one, but like better in some way, and sometimes not better in others. They kind of keep dangling that string in front of people who keep thinking like, oh, this is going to be it. This is the perfect one. I'm selling all the other ones in my collection. I'm happy forever until the next one comes out. And that's another practice of theirs, in addition to, ever increasing prices and shrinking other toys and all that, that I really am starting to have grind on my nerves a little bit. When you have a franchise that has hundreds, if not thousands of different characters to choose from across different continuities, all this, putting the same characters out year after year, it gets tiring for someone who is a collector, a longtime collector, who's already bought the old versions. Now, for more casual fans, this isn't a big deal, right? They probably don't have a bunch of different hot rods sitting on a shelf somewhere. They might have one, maybe two from when they were a kid and they want a new one. Okay, that's fine. But back in the day when they would release new toys of certain characters, usually they were different, right? They were upgraded forms for that character. Think Optimus Prime, Power Master Optimus Prime, Laser Optimus Prime. They were significantly different. It wasn't the same design being rehashed over and over again. And I've noticed a lot less of that creativity and risk-taking in modern years. It's just kind of the same designs, redone over and over with slight tweaks. You don't see a whole lot of new, heavily armored dune buggy mode hot rod, some sort of upgraded form, G2 hot rod, something like that, something crazy. They don't want to do that. And I honestly was perfectly happy when we got Titans Return hot rod. I thought, okay, we got our hot rod, let's do a Rodimus Prime and then move on. And they kind of surprised me because they gave us a Rodimus Prime, but he was also hot rod. I'm like, well, that's cool. Honestly, the Rodimus could be a lot better. He's just this big hulking character that really doesn't look right. But the hot rod in a robot, I think is great. I think it's better than the Titans Return one. So I was really happy. I'm like, cool. We got a good hot rod. Let's take one more crack at Rodimus Prime and make him good this time. Don't compromise him with a gimmick. Because luckily, the standalone hot rod robot here is just quite good on his own. You could toss the whole trailer and all the extra bits and he's still a really solid hot rod toy. But of course, it's never enough. So now they're releasing an all-new hot rod, and being Studio Series, there's a very deep focus on his animation model. So this toy looks probably more like the Masterpiece than anything else. You'll notice most of the hot rods use a nice bright red color, which is the color of the original toy. These two opt for red mixed with magenta because that was close to Hot Rod's coloration in the movie and the TV show, or at least sometimes in the TV show. So for me personally, I'm not super, super stoked to get a hot rod. I love the toy for its own merits, but there are so many other things we need. Okay, I'm going to cut that rant off for now. So I brought up how similar these guys are. And that does come down to their features as well, because most of these guys can hold one or two of their blasters on their engine blocks. So here's a quick look at that feature. The Generation 1 and Masterpiece toys can only house one of their guns on the engine block at any given time, whereas the Titans Return toy and our new guy can have the two, which I think is an improvement, right? Because if you're going to have weapon storage, have enough for all your weapons. The Classics toy, his gun actually just forms a flame effect on the back of his car. Combator Wars toy doesn't have an actual ranged weapon. And then our Power of the Primes guy, he does have them, but unfortunately there's nowhere to place them on this vehicle body. They can only be attached to the trailer portion of his Rodimus Prime vehicle mode. Now what's interesting is that just like the new Studio Series toy, the Masterpiece can actually store both of his blasters on the back right here. There's little kind of spring-loaded panels that you can push in and store them. So that makes me think that the new Studio Series toy is very much inspired by the Masterpiece in more ways than just both of them looking like the movie version of the character. Okay, now it's time for our transformation robot mode. If you haven't already, make sure to remove any accessories, just set them off to the side. And we're going to get started on this. First thing we're doing is flipping the hood down like this, and taking little headlight pieces and just rotating them all the way inward, getting them out of the way. And we're going to unplug the arms from the side of the car. They're attached in a few different places, so you got to pull them loose from there. There's a tab right there, there's a tab there. Once you get the arm free, you're going to take this old panel, just kind of flip it around out of the way, and rotate the arm 180. Now, the arms on my guy are pretty tight. It takes a good amount of force to turn them here. Don't know if that'll be that way for everything. You're going to swing his little arm-mounted exhaust pipe blaster things around, and then swing this in. It'll plug into this circular hole in the forearm, like so. So get it nice and secure. The same thing here. I hate how tight those are. Flip this out, flip it around, do all that. All right, so you get the arms free, like so. Then you want to get this whole spoiler and kind of roof section detached from the legs. So you just pull the legs apart, and this will swing up. So you just kind of get it up, out of the way. Let's unfold his legs now. What you want to do is swing these open. They're going to untab from the shin areas. Going to swing the leg out, give you some clearance. Extend it, flip the foot out. You're going to fold the wheel in. It's kind of tabbed in, so use a little bit of force. Fold all the way in, and then fold all this in until it plugs in nice and securely to the back of the leg. That's one leg right there. So we do the same thing. Go ahead and untab this. Flip it out. Extend. Bring down the foot. And fold everything inside. Gives them some nice, clean lower legs. Look at that. They even got little 5mm ports on them. Super convenient. Gonna rotate his waist 180 like this. And we're gonna swing all this back. You're gonna bring his head all the way up, turn it around. All right, then what we're gonna do is rotate this up, like so. Gonna spin it around here. I'm gonna fold his actual hood section in, fold everything down, and rotate it all this up until it just plugs in securely right here. So you got his torso all together. And the last thing we're doing, you're gonna rotate this piece around, swing it up, make sure this tabs into the top, and here we go. This is Hot Rod's robot mode, and it is nice. Look at this. Get him all posed up, looking nice. Again, his arms are a little tighter than I'd like. Wish they were a tiny bit looser, but again, rather a little too tight than too loose, because then you couldn't pose them. All right, so this is what we're working with. Now, this is not a big figure. In fact, I'll do some size comparisons so you can see just how not big this figure is. But he is a very high quality figure, very well engineered. In fact, personally, I would say over-engineered. You notice during the transformation that his chest right here, the car hood chest, is fake kibble. Now, I've softened to the idea of the fake kibble over, the last couple of years, but I still kind of err on the side of if you don't have to use it, don't. And I feel that so many Hot Rod toys have used the actual car hood as the chest successfully before, including the Masterpiece, that this really seemed like excessive engineering and just added to the cost of this figure for no really good reason. Like, yes, it might slim down that chest a little bit more just to get him a little bit closer to cartoon proportions. But is it worth it, honestly? Like, is it worth the extra engineering? Is it worth the inauthentic transformation? And, of course, the rising cost of the figure? I don't think so. I think, unlike a toy like, say, Cyclonus, where the original toy's head was like the cockpit, and the cockpit would split to become horns, and he had just this doofy-looking head in toy form, his Kingdom figure opts to not utilize the head as the nose cone, and actually is a very clever transformation for hiding both the real nose cone and the fake one in each mode. So in that case, I'd say it was a good call. For him, I don't think it was as necessary. Like his car hood is not that wide. It should have been engineered differently, but oh well, what's done is done. So let's talk about posability on this guy. He is very posable. The head is on a ball joint and moves every which way, which is nice. The shoulders are in universal joints, so they swing out. And they have kind of a click right here. They kind of snap into place, which I don't really like because it's hard to get any position that's like between like here and here. So not sure why they did that. The arms do swing up and down, though on my copy quite tightly. I don't know why. It's got a single bent elbow, bicep swivel, which is also fairly tight. He has wrist swivel. He has the opening fingers, which seems to be common for these very small toys that they bump up to the next price point. They're like, look, moving fingers. That'll be $10 more, please. The waist does a full 360, which is really nice. That's interesting. He's got gray on the back there. I didn't notice that till now. So it must have been a molding thing because I would have preferred if that was red, but oh well. His hips can go all the way out, all the way in, swing. They're a little limited in their backward swing. They can swing all the way up forward. And he's got like the kind of hip skirt movement that the Earthrise Optimus Prime has. He's got thigh swivel up here. Got double bend knees. So that's nice. He can get some really deep knee bends. He has ankle tilt, and he's got some degree of ankle rocking. Not a lot, mostly just backwards a little bit for transformation. Can't really tiptoe much, but overall, very, very nice. And that's not even getting into the extra features that this toy has. So one of the little boons that they have for this toy is he gets his visor from the movie, just like the Masterpiece. So he can swing his helmet up. You see the visor in there. Carefully bring it down. I say carefully because it's clear plastic with a pin through it, prone to cracking. And then you close the helmet and he gets the visor, which is really, really neat. He can also tuck his hands away. Pull the back of his forearm down, and on this side reveals his little welding torch thing. So you just flip everything around, tuck that back in, and he can help, fix a poor broken cup. Who, I don't know if you know this yet, but the Studio Series Cup toy can actually come apart. Like his arms and legs can pop off so that you can fix him. Pretty neat touch. And the other one can flip out just to reveal a 5mm peg. And that, while it can have many potential uses, is meant for his saw blade attachment. So you can keep those mechanical fish and squid monsters from eating Cup. So overall, very much loaded with gimmicks. But they're not intrusive gimmicks, which is what I love. Like, I don't hate gimmicks, but I don't like it when they come at the expense of the action figure itself. Like, you still want a fully functioning, fully posing action figure. So, yeah, he can do a lot with just this setup without even, attaching fire blast effects or guns or anything. So that's really cool. Now we have Hot Rod holding his two blasters. So you can see that. They just slide right into his hand. Fingers just kind of close around it. And they're way smaller than any of the guns that we've seen on previous Hot Rods, but I guess that's more proportional to his cartoon model, I suppose. They look really tiny, though. But then again, this whole guy is kind of tiny, so, So he can wield them, and they do look very nice. They're done up in very much the same silver as his exhaust pipes and hubcaps and all that. So he holds them very well. But let's say we want to free up his hands, right? Get rid of the guns and the saw blades and all that, because he's got other stuff to do. He's got plenty more features to play with. So you can store these right here, which forms, the back top section of his vehicle mode. These plug in just like they did for vehicle mode. Again, very tightly, which I don't like. And then you can always plug his saw blade on the back of these. So lots of storage, though I do worry it might make him a little back heavy. Not too bad. So you can do that. And let's say he wants to use his auxiliary weapons. So he wants to, shoot little lasers from his exhaust pipe things. You just go ahead and you plug this right on here, like so. Do the same thing on this side. And there you go. You got him using his little blaster things from the movie, like when he shot at the Autobot shuttle that had been boarded by Decepticons. Of course, you could always flip down his visor, too, if you want it to look really cool. Now, one thing we've barely touched on is Hot Rod's Matrix. So you can see I have him here holding it. And when we compare it to Optimus Prime's Matrix, we see that they are very similar. They're definitely the same mold, and their paint applications are nearly identical. I want to say that the silver handle part on Hot Rods is a little bit less shiny than the one for Optimus. And if you look closely, the clear blue plastic that's used for these seems to be a little bit darker for Hot Rods, but not enough to make like a huge difference, just a slightly deeper blue. So they did a really good job of matching these two up. Because even though one of these is War for Seibertron and one of these is Studio Series, they are very much meant to go hand in hand. Especially with the all but confirmed Rodimus Prime that's coming in Kingdom, you can bet that he's going to have compatibility with this Matrix. I don't know if he'll come with his own or not. The expectation may be that you own either Hot Rod or Optimus Prime so they can hand it off to him. But, we'll find out when that toy is eventually revealed. It also bugs me, come to think of it, because we are getting an Ultra Magnus in Kingdom, but it's simply a retool of the Siege toy, and I highly, highly doubt that thing can accommodate an actual Matrix. So I think they really dropped the ball with Magnus by not just making him either an Earthrise Optimus redeco with new armor or just a much heavier retool of the Siege toy, because I think they're going to fall flat, and unfortunately you're not going to be able to reenact the whole scene where Hot Rod, hands a Matrix off to Magnus and he stores it in his chest for a while, but oh well. Now, as far as really utilizing Hot Rod's Matrix, got to go ahead and use that light up effect. So the first thing we want to do, let's go ahead and get him to hold this thing. And this is the whole reason they really had to give him articulated fingers, because he needs to be able to actually grasp his Matrix. Not very useful if he can't, So we need to pose this around. And again, it's kind of difficult because his joints are pretty tight in his arms. But you can get this to go. You want to get the Matrix facing the right way here. I would kind of loop it on his thumbs and just close the fingers up, and that'll get him to grasp it. Try to get nice and even. That's pretty even right there. All right. So you get him. He's grasping the Matrix, ready to go. Maybe have him hold it up a little higher if we can. Get that. There we go. It looks pretty nice. All right. So then, he needs the little shiny effect here. So we take this, it's got two little kind of tab things that just slide over the top and bottom of the Matrix, and it's soft plastic, so you don't have to worry about like scratching it up or anything, just kind of grips it. And here you go. We get him lighting our darkest hour with the Matrix. And this looks really cool as is, but what'll make it look even cooler, so we go ahead and place him on his backdrop. So here is that Depths of Unicron background that was included with Hot Rod. We go ahead and we take him right in the middle here, and oh man, look at that. It's like it's 1986 all over again. So this is very, very cool. This is easily one of the most iconic scenes to feature Hot Rod, and now you get a backdrop that represents the exact place he was where he finally opened the Matrix, became Rodimus Prime, defeated Galvatron, defeated Unicron, saved the day. Big heroic climax in the movie. What's going to be neat is when we finally get the Rodimus Prime, you can do like a little stop motion where, he's standing there and he grows up into Rodimus Prime. You even put the little Optimus soundbite in there, right? In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I feel like I need to do that now that I've said it. So yeah, this is a really nice package that comes together here. One little point of cross-compatibility I wanted to address is the fact that Hot Rod is fully compatible with the Battlemaster Fire Drive, aka his old Target Master partner, Firebolt. To be fair, Fire Drive's compatible with just about every Hot Rod in existence, because almost all of them have 5mm ports for hands, but it is really cool. If you want to display this guy with his classic Target Master, you can absolutely do that. And I honestly think he pulls it off a lot better than, say, the Titan's Return toy. Okay, here's our lineup with the other Hot Rods. And again, you get G1, Classics, Combiner Wars, Masterpiece, Titans Return, Power of the Primes, and new studio series. You can see these guys come in all different heights and shapes and, certain aesthetic flares, but they all represent the same character. And with the exception of maybe the Combiner Wars guy, because he's really just an afterthought, in all honesty, these guys all nail the look very, very well in their own ways. Now, I talked about the fake car hood thing. All of the guys here that actually have a car hood chest, so again, not counting Weirdo over here, they all use their actual car hood with the exception of the Power of the Primes toy. And that's only because his hood is actually Rodimus Prime's hood. And when he is in Rodimus Prime form, he actually does utilize that car hood as his chest. So again, just to show how well you can really pull it off and not have to cheat the transformation. So it really bugs me because if they hadn't gone all crazy with that, I'm sure they could have engineered this thing in a much more simple yet satisfying way, and it would have really cut down on the overhead cost of making it. And, even with the accessories and stuff, maybe not need to charge everybody $20 for this little tiny toy. And when I say little, I want to show you something. Our new toy is shorter than the deluxe class Titans Return Hot Rod. This Voyager toy, this $30 toy, is shorter than the $17 deluxe class predecessor. Now again, I know height isn't everything, right? Sometimes a toy can be short, but they're really big, But, look. Itty-bitty stuff. This toy is no slouch right here, right? He's got plenty of stuff going on for him. This is just... It's hard to fathom, right? I never thought I'd see the day that you had a Voyager that's shorter than a deluxe. And not just shorter, but going off of just the figures themselves, without the little, doodads thrown in, which, themselves aren't very massive anyway. Not shorter, but just less massive overall. You're getting a lot less here. He's much, much lighter than this toy. It's not right. And to really give you an idea of the difference here, here's a lineup from shortest to tallest of some figures I've discussed here in the last couple of reviews. So you get our Voyager class Hot Rod, his deluxe counterpart, Ironhide, who's, supposed to be a very tall deluxe. You get Primal, who I've already complained about being not enough for $30, but at least he's bigger than Ironhide. Then you get an average size Voyager, at least for today's standards, in Optimus Prime. And then a big Voyager over here with Cyclonus. And it's kind of insane to think that you got $30 toy, $20, $20, $30, $30, $30. No! And I know people keep going back to the engineering and the parts counts, but Optimus and Cyclonus are no slouches when it comes to Voyagers. High part count, lots of articulation, really well engineered. Honestly, just amazing, amazing toys. Things that 80s kids could have never dreamed of. And then you compare that to this little pipsqueak guy over here. And sure, here we go. Throw in his little bit of accessories. I just want to show you how little that actually is. Yeah, there's several of them, but they're tiny. His guns are tiny. Everything's tiny. Even more so than Optimus Primal, I don't buy it. We know the cost of manufacturing these things is pennies on the dollar. And yes, you can make the free market argument of well, if people pay for it, you can charge whatever you want. Sure, you can. But over time, you diminish goodwill. Now you'll notice I haven't reviewed a Masterpiece toy for a long time, not since Dinobot, and that's because I don't buy Masterpiece toys anymore. They are too expensive. And they got that way by doing exactly what Hasbro's doing with retail toys now. They're chasing that sweet, sweet cartoon accuracy come hell or high water. They need these things to look as cartoon accurate in vehicle mode and robot mode as possible, despite that not being the original intent of transforming robots, right? The cartoon was supposed to match them, not the other way around. So to achieve this, they greatly over-engineer these figures. So they bring the production costs up, and then if they feel like they're a little too scummy, they'll just throw extra accessories at it. That's exactly what they do at Masterpiece Toys. That's exactly what they're starting to do with Generations and Studio Series. Hey, can't flesh it out to a proper price point? Well, just throw more stuff at it. And it's no. And there are a lot of people that are getting priced out. Personally, I do okay for myself. Won't get into specifics, but I'm not poor, right? Somebody who's really struggling, someone who's young, someone who has, maybe not the best income, but they want to collect, they're going to start to feel priced out of just standard retail toys in the way I felt priced out of Masterpiece. Like, when they announced that Beast Wars Megatron, the Masterpiece one, was going to be $350 or something, I just said no. I was done. And then they had the Optimus for like $450, and I'm like, that's insane. There's just no way. There's no way any toy can be worth that much money. Heck, the only reason I backed Unicron, as absurdly expensive as he was, is because I just knew that if I didn't, I'd never get one. I didn't have the option of like changing my mind later if I happened upon some extra spending cash. So I broke my rule there. But aside from some crazy, made to order type situation like that, I'm never going to buy toys that are that expensive. And nobody, I think, in their right mind, at least somebody who just doesn't have money to throw at things, is going to pay that kind of price either. I mean, it's already bad enough that each price point gets more expensive year after year. The new MSRP for deluxes is like $22, $23. I mean, come on. That is over twice what deluxes started out as. And aside from some advances in engineering, which again is not more expensive because it gets easier to do over the decades, I mean, they're not that much more amazing, right? Like, I can look at some of my deluxe Beast Wars toys, some Armada toys and stuff, and a lot of them are just as beefy as these guys. Sure, they're not as articulated because, again, engineering has improved. Technology has improved. It's really becoming a kick in the teeth when they try to sell you something like this for $30. And again, they know they can get away with it because it's Hot Rod. It is one of the leader characters. Even though he's had umpteen million toys so far, people are still going to do it. I mean, I did it right. Now, for me, it was more so to do the review than to actually really care about getting a Hot Rod. If I didn't do toy reviews, I probably just would have not bought him and just held out for the Rodimus Prime. But yeah, it is getting absolutely absurd. And I don't see this trend going away. If anything, I see it just getting worse. Like, prices are going to keep going up. You're going to get less for that price. And eventually, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. And they're going to have nobody left willing to buy their stuff. And then they're either going to have to drastically reduce the quality in order to get prices down to a level that they deem, what they want. Which, again, will just turn around and hurt them because nobody wants cheap, junky toys. Or they may have to realize that you can only increase your profit margin so far before you just turn people off completely. So I really hope this is more of a fluke than anything, and we're not just going to repeatedly see $30, let's face it, deluxes that are unnecessarily over-engineered to chase that sweet, sweet cartoon accuracy that I promise, though there are very loud voices for such things, it's not most people. Most people would not have refused to buy this if he actually used his car hood for a chest and maybe it was slightly wider than it is now. They still would have picked it up. You could have made the toy for much cheaper, not made people drop $30 on it. So I know it was quite the rant, but again, I just want to get these points across because I think they are conversations that need to happen in our hobby, as collectors, collectively. And just like I said with Primal's review, don't let this make you think that I don't like this toy. He is fantastic. He is extremely well made, comes with tons of cool stuff. Great, great figure. Not worth $30. $20, I would say yes. But if Hasbro really thinks that a standard deluxe is really worth $20, then let's say $25. Again, I brought up the idea, and I've kind of been discussing it with some other people online, the idea of add another price point or two, right? I know why they need price points. I get the marketing behind it, the shelf space and all that, but you can squeeze one or two more price points into your Transformer selection. Do a Deluxe Plus, right? Somewhere between Deluxe and Voyager. Do somewhere between Voyager and Leader. If you get just a bit more specific, you can make these toys at reasonable prices to where people will buy them. And you're not going to end up with, Leader Class Shockwave, who I still see sitting on shelves at Targets. where nobody wants to pay that much for a little Shockwave. You won't get that. You can make a good Shockwave, and if you feel that he's a bit too much for a Voyager, you can bump him up a little bit. And people, I guarantee, will pay 35 to 40 way before they'll pay $50 for that. Same thing goes with this guy. If he had been like some sort of like special edition, $25 deluxe, I would have felt a lot better purchasing this. Okay. So, hope I didn't bore everyone to death with my rants. But if you've been watching me for a while, you know I do more than just tell you about a toy and then say, okay, bye. I like to discuss these things as well. Hopefully you guys are here for that. So my final thoughts on this Hot Rod, despite everything I've said. Beautifully done. I do have that weird QC issue where his headlights don't really push down as far as I'd like them to. And again, if other people have this, please let me know if you have that same problem. But the car mode still looks really great. It does have the issue of having that empty back, which is not something I really harp on too much because who really displays their car from the back? But it is something I wish they would have addressed. Maybe if instead of engineering a bunch of fake kibble, they could have given him a bumper. Just saying. Of course, his vehicle mode pales in comparison to his robot mode, which I think is utterly fantastic. And the things people say about it not having the hollow bits and all that, is very true. I mean, you actually see like screws in his thigh, which is not something you see these days. Now again, that kind of brings me back to the whole loss of quality but increase in price, because a lot of toys used to use screws to not have hollow bits everywhere. But I digress. He is absolutely fantastic looking. I think his shoulder articulation's a little weird, a little wonky. You can't quite get every bit of range of motion out of those shoulders like you could a more standard joint. But that is a pretty minor grievance. He can get creative with it and make it work. The accessories he comes with are all fantastic. I love the exhaust flames, the buzz saw. He's got his little welding torch tucked away. And of course the Matrix with the light up effect. Now, I do wish that you could actually store the Matrix in his chest. Now, I know the original Hot Rod didn't put it in his chest till he became Rodimus Prime, so I can't really complain about it, but it would have been nice just to have somewhere to put it. And overall, I think this is a really, really fantastic set. And even though I don't think it's worth the $30 they're charging, just like Primal, I would say that if you have the money to spare, and you're not going to put yourself in a bind by buying overly expensive toys, then go for it. Unless you don't want to buy it on principle. You might say, well, I don't think I should pay that much for it because it's just enabling Hasbro. And I mean, you're right. So you could try to wait for this dude to go on clearance. I can see him maybe going on clearance. I mean, there were like 8 of this guy on the shelf when I got to Target. Of course, no Scourges, because everybody wants to buy like 100 Scourges in Army build. Which, I'm going to put this out there. It's very much rumored they're actually going to make a sweep toy from that Scourge, so you may want to hold off buying up all the Scourges. Especially when they're just coming out and other people might want them. Do you hear me, Army Builder people? Wait for the sweep, please. Be courteous to your fellow collectors. So yeah, I mean, he's worth eating the cost and getting if you really want him. If you don't want him that badly, you can always wait and see if he goes down in price. I'd expect probably Amazon's the first place you'll see a discount on him if he gets overstocked. That's usually where they start dropping prices on these first. So yeah, very, very solid toy. Up to you if you want to pay the very exorbitant prices for this guy. And now that I've yet again long-windedly said my piece, I want to know what you guys think of this new Hot Rod. Do you think he's worth the $30? I know there are a lot of people online that really disagree with my take on these things, and that's fine. If you guys disagree, I definitely want to hear about it. I know in my Primal review, I didn't really get any dissension. Most people kind of felt the same way. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought people were going to hate that review and just dislike bomb it to death, but that didn't happen, so I was really shocked. A lot of you guys seem to be like-minded with me on this whole cost thing. So either way, whether you think it's worth it or not, whether you like this toy or not, I would love to get your feedback in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like, let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this very in-depth look at the new Transformers Studio Series 86 Voyager class Hot Rod. And with all that said, I will see you next time.